Today on the podcast, I'm interviewing my own fitness trainer, Lindsay Arias, about failure and how failure is the secret to success both in the gym and in our lives and careers. Lindsay is a fitness trainer and the head of training at Burn Boot Camp Cary and Chapel Hill, North Carolina. She is married to another fitness trainer, Steven, and a mother to two beautiful babies, Sebastian and Sienna. Lindsay has always had a passion for helping people and directed that passion through fitness. More than that, though, Lindsay truly feels like her calling is to take her love for fitness and use it as a way to connect with anyone she comes into contact with. Human connection is one of the most powerful things we can create, and Lindsay loves being able to connect with people of all ages, sizes, colors, and cultures through the community she and her team have built within the Burn Nation. We cover a lot of ground in this conversation, everything from vulnerability, having the right people at your table, to building confidence and moving through that fear of failure. So let's get into that interview. Welcome back to the Upgraded Leader podcast, where we talk about all things managing up, building relationships, leading our teams, personal brands, setting goals, honoring our bodies, and succeeding in our careers on our terms. I'm your host, Nicole Case, and today I'm joined by my friend and fitness trainer, Lindsay Arias, and we are talking about failure, which I'm sure a shudder just went through the collective audience full of driven and ambitious people who don't enjoy failure. But first, before we get into all of that goodness, Lindsay, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, you guys, I'm so excited to be here, Nicole. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So before we get into like all things failure, great positive topic for today. No, it totally is. So please don't leave just yet. But first, just tell us about your career journey. How did you end up being here, becoming a head trainer for two gyms? Just like kind of tell us all about you.
Sure. It's almost embarrassing to say how many years I'm in the fitness industry now because it's aging myself. By no means do I think I'm old, by the way. It's just time goes by. So I went to school for this. I'm one of the very rare people that knew exactly what they wanted to do, and I followed my school path, and it spit me out as a personal trainer. Which anybody out there that's listening that's ever dove into the personal training world fresh out of college, you can imagine what my first couple of years looked like. And I grinded it out. And, the early mornings, the late nights, and the millions of clients and all the relationships and the experience. It's all positive looking back on it now, right? Where I found Burn was one of my college friends did his internship through Burn when they were, barely out of a parking lot. They had just gotten their first physical building, and so, the first set of franchises was coming to our area in Raleigh, Durham, and he called me and said, "Hey, Linz, this is meant for you. I need you to get in touch with Beth Williams." Shout out to Beth, our FP. Um, and you got to do this thing. It's coming to you. You're the perfect fit. And so I did my research and I called him back and I said, "I'm not interested," which sounds crazy. I tell our members this because I like to be very transparent and open and honest, but at the time it was marketed as female only. And
Mhm.
the only reason I wasn't interested was strictly from past experiences of anything female only. I didn't have great ones at the time.
Mhm.
I was so young. And so I feel okay sharing that now because of everything that we've built at these two gyms, because my preconception of women only workouts were things like, and this is no hate to the program, but like curves. I'm sure you've heard of curves. Yeah.
Oh gosh, yes. My grandmother did curves for years.
Yes. And it's the perfect fit for somebody, but it would not have been the perfect fit for
Yeah.
me. And that's all I had. And my friend Daniel Ballard, again, another shout out to the Burn OGs, but was like, "Come to Charlotte, see the dang thing. I promise you this is," and I saw one workout and I was like, "Sign me up. How do I join?" Um, and then we've been here ever since. We opened Burn Cary in 2016. So almost 8 years. In April, it'll be 8 years, which is bananas. And since then, I've roped in my husband. He's now the head trainer over at the Chapel Hill location, which I now manage as well. So
Mhm.
lots of in betweens and everything that I just told you. But the important highlights is that I found Burn and Burn found me, and it has been epically life changing since then.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. So in case people are wondering, we're talking about Burn Boot Camp. So there are hundreds of hundreds of shops like all over the country. So there's likely one where you live if you're not local to the Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina area. But I had several friends who were part of part of Burn for, from the beginning. And they're like, Nicole, you'd love this place. You'd love this place. It's female forward, which is what I like. I even talk about my own business that it's female forward. I'm not female exclusive. I have some male clients and they're awesome and amazing. But they're like, Nicole, I think you're totally going to love this place. And I'm like, I don't know, boot camp. That sounds very scary and and intimidating. I'm like, I don't know about this. And they're like, Nicole, you just got to try it out. Got to try it out. And I was like, all right, fine. So I decided to come to a Saturday camp at like 9 a.m. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to go early to like fill out the waiver forms and all of this stuff. And there was a camp ending right before it. And if anybody who knows me and on this podcast, I have shared, I am not a fan of running. I'm not a runner. I don't enjoy it. It's not my jam. I have lots of friends who are runners, who are marathoners, and they are crazy, but I still love them. But I'm not a runner. And I was like a little bit nervous. I was like, boot camp, that sounds like I'm just going to be running the mile, like the presidential fitness test or something like that, which I have like traumatic memories of. If you want a good podcast about that, go listen to the maintenance phase podcast episode on the presidential physical fitness test. It's a good one. But I remember pulling into the parking lot at like 8:40 in the morning on a Saturday. And I see this woman with bright blonde hair and all of these people running in the parking lot. And so I knew, I was like, that is what they call the finisher. They are finishing with running outside. Nope. And I drove away. I was like, no, thank you. I drove away and did not come back for a month.
Oh my God, I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I pulled in the parking lot, saw you and everyone running outside during the finisher, which again, if you're not familiar with Burn, that is the last thing that we end with. And I'm like, you went all camp and then ran outside. I was like, nope, nope, hard pass. So I drove away, didn't even get out of the car. I just drove away, but I came back a month later. Speaking of failure, like I drove away and then came back a month later and one of my friends were there and I told her this. I was like, listen, Jenny, like I like ran away last time scared. And I was like, it just, do we run all the time? And she goes, occasionally. And then what did we first do? All right, run to the fourth tree. I'm like, oh shit.
Warm up lap.
Warm up lap. I was like, lovely. Anyway, but since that time, though, that was 2018, since that time, um, just found just awesome community, such body positivity. I remember one of the first camps I also took with you, Lynn. I remember we were running outside because good God. And I remember you said something about like we like had a race of some kind. Like you were like, okay, first group race to like this tree and back. And you were like, if you don't get back here in like so many seconds, I'm gonna make you run it again. And like you went and then you said go and and the first group started running and you turned around and looked at the rest of us. You're like, haha, I would never use exercise as a punishment. So it's like, oh yeah, I totally belong here. So,
Sounds like something to do.
so anyway, so just to kind of to start us all off, if you're suspect of having a personal trainer on my podcast, like, no, we are here to talk about things that are healthy and positive and moving your body in the way that you want to move. But actually today we're actually talking about failure in the sense of failure, yes, at the gym, but failure also just in life. And how this whole interview came about was that something that you do, Lindsay, on Fridays when you are training is the Friday reflections. So that this was kind of the inspiration for this because you've done these Friday reflections for years, and you've talked about failure during those sessions as well. But I'm just curious, like, how did you come up with Friday reflections? What made you start doing those, and what's kind of the purpose of them?
Yeah, yeah. I've been doing them pretty much since Burn Bootcamp's inception in Cary. What I was really trying to portray to people and convey was that what we were doing, this journey that we were all embarking on, because keep in mind, I had just turned 25 when we opened the gym. And so I think a lot of times people make the confusion like, oh, I'm a female, so I'm going to be able to relate to any female that walks in the gym, where just kind of like your experience, right? You see this loud, blonde, like crazy person, like you might not feel like you can relate to me on the surface. And I think human connection is so important to me. And it's such a huge part of what I believe to be the most healthy way to approach fitness and health and nutrition and overall wellness. And so what I used Friday reflection for was a couple of things. One, I know for me, especially in that phase of life, well, now, gosh, different phase of life, everyone needs a moment where they can dedicate to just being present and not needed by somebody or on to their next scheduled thing. And sometimes it really does feel like the first time that I've breathed all week is when I do these Friday reflections. And so I wanted to give people the space to do that. When I decided to take it from more of just like a moment of silence, if you will, into a conversation or a topic of some sort, is I wanted to make sure that even if it was only one or two people at every single camp, but people felt seen and heard and had a safe space to be emotional about the things that were going on in their lives. Gyms aren't always that place for people.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's the last place that they want to, but I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that, yeah, they were coming in for a really hard workout, but they were also coming into a place and a space that they could be vulnerable and real and raw. And honestly, the inspiration for my Friday reflections, it's different every week. Sometimes it's a conversation with a member who I obviously would never disclose who it was with, but that inspired like a conversation that maybe lots of people want to have, but they're too scared to. Or maybe I read a really cool Instagram post and it like hit me in the feels. And so I'm like, maybe someone else would, resonate with. And so I wanted to make sure that I made as many human connections as possible, both on and off the floor. And it was
Mhm.
kind of transformative. It's kind of something that has just stayed with people and people look forward to, and I've even done in the Chapel Hill gym, and they're like, "Dang, we didn't know you guys were doing this in Cary," but I've gotten so many really cool reactions, and I say at the beginning of every Friday reflection, I'm like, "Listen, if you need 90 seconds to just, like, exist, it's okay if you ignore everything that comes out of my mouth right now, like, have your space." But also, I feel like maybe since I've heard this message 10 times this week, maybe it's something we all need to talk about.
Yeah.
Um, and we've done them every Friday since, at least when I'm in the gyms and on the floor. And so I'm hoping to use social media as a way to push that down more. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's just a way to connect and to let people know that like it's okay. Um, whatever. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to disagree, whatever the topic is, but it's just okay.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, and I can't tell you how many times I'm over there crying in the middle of a Friday reflection. But I think you're right. I think it's like I feel this with my clients too, that like I'll hear like a theme over and over again. I'll hear like somebody struggling with a particular thing and it just like resonates with me. And so like that's how sometimes these podcast episodes come about, or my social media posts come about, or just a training like comes up because a client that I'm working with is going through something, or or I'm hearing a theme from other people and I'm like, feel like other people could probably could probably use this right now. And so again, like how this whole topic has come up, like I've heard you talk about this idea of failure, and when we're at the gym, there's a lot of different ways that you might structure a workout, and whether it's like for time or for a certain amount of reps. But I know that I walk away when with feeling like I've had the best workout whenever the structure is we're going to failure today. Like, I know like, every time, like, I know I feel like, "Man, I really worked hard today," whenever when we go to failure, but there's just something about that word that we all immediately just, like we just, like, kind of, like, tense up around, like, "Oh, I gotta go to failure." Like, I really have to push myself today, and can that feels really uncomfortable, especially for people who are super high achieving, super driven, have really high standards for themselves. So, like, from the context in the gym, like, what does it mean to go to failure at the gym, and why is that good for us in the gym?
Yeah, sure. So if you're talking about from like a physiological
Mhm.
standpoint, right? We're talking about muscles going to failure, or your overall rate of perceived exertion is RPE is a scale that we use to gauge how hard is an individual working, and it's all relative to the individual, right? My
Yeah.
what it takes to get me to an RPE of 10 is different what it takes you to get to an RPE of 10, and
Mhm.
that's across the board. Um, so physiologically, in order for your muscles to get stronger, for your cardiovascular system to improve, you have to go to a certain RPE. And that's just like a simple scale to use. So I'm just for today's podcast, we're going to use RPE, but and it's a scale of 1 to 10. So our goal as trainers is to get everybody to their 10 on certain workouts. And again, my 10's different than your 10, different than someone else's 10. And that is the only way that your body is going to see progress when it comes to physiology, when it comes to fitness, right? You hear the term like go outside your comfort zone and like,
Mhm.
but uncomfortable in your RPE of 10, like there's still a range there, right? Like I'm already uncomfortable, but I'm still not at my 10. And so we have conversations with members about what their goals are, but regardless of the goals, in order to see progress in your strength, your conditioning, all of those things, we have to go to failure. And it's
Mhm.
such a hard concept to do because from a workout standpoint, people very often either confuse or substitute fatigue for failure. And
Mm.
there's a big difference, right? You get tired before you fail. And so because 100% of the people that walk in the gym have goals related to their fitness. They're all different, but they have goals related to fitness. That's why they're there, right? To get them closer to those goals from a physiological standpoint. We take people to failure as often as we can. And just to clarify, because I know there's some fitness people out there listening right now, form failure. So while they're still keeping themselves safe, right?
Right.
So yes, that's what form is always what we're looking for, but form failure. So failure with good form is how people get stronger. It's just physically how that happens.
Yeah. And I love that you said that there's a difference between fatigue and failure. So, like, say more about that because I think that's a really important concept for people to wrap their heads around. Because I know I feel that way sometimes when I'm at the gym that I'm just like, like I'm going and I'm just like, man, I'm tired. I want to put these down, but that does not mean that like I'm at failure. So say a little bit more about what the difference there is.
Yeah, sure. To keep it very, very simple, people want to stop when it starts getting uncomfortable. Period. It
Yeah.
starts to burn, for lack of a a better term. And right. So I always put it into perspective like this in the gym. Let's take the same workout that we do in the gym with all the people around you and your trainers, and let's put you in that same scenario in your garage alone. Which one are you going to work harder in? And it's the in the gym because someone is asking you to do more than what you would do alone. And that's the difference
Mhm.
between, hey, I'm really tired. This is uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. So I'm going to stop versus that's usually your marker for like, hey, you probably have 5 to 10 more reps. Those are the ones that when you were on your own, you would stop.
Yeah.
Failure means you are giving it everything you've got, everything that's inside of you, and you are trying, but that weight's just not moving or that rep's just not happening. Failure means you can't. Fatigue means you don't want to. And that's okay
Mm.
to not want to. It's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to do uncomfortable things. But that's the difference. Failure is I physically cannot versus I no longer want to do this because it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is like the perfect segue into every time I hear this at the gym, I'm constantly thinking like, boy, that is so true in life, in our careers, in business, that things feel hard and things feel uncomfortable in again in our businesses and in our careers. But that's usually, like, the moment where if we can, like, get through that uncomfortableness, that's where the magic tends to happen. So, like, how do you believe just that failure in the gym can really translate to not only being able to handle, but also accept failure
Yeah.
outside of the gym?
Yeah. So my firm belief, and you've probably heard me say this in the gym, is that while through all of our workouts and nutritional guidance, we are building muscle and we're building endurance, we're building all these things. We're also building confidence in people. And that is the main byproduct of what we do in our gym is we are trying to build people's confidence because if you have confidence in yourself to try that next set of weights or to try that exercise that you've been scared to do, that confidence will hopefully transcend out into the real world. And so it's my personal belief that a more confident person is better equipped to deal with failure because we're gonna fail. Or I hope you guys are. I hope you guys are out there failing all over the place because that means you are trying things that are not inside your comfort zone. You are trying to move the needle on something. And I think that's so dang inspiring. And people that have the confidence in themselves tend to be better equipped to handle failure because you know that that failure is pushing you forward and it is not a reflection of who you are as a person. So somebody that fails all the time to me is not a failure. It means they're trying at something, right? As long as you are failing
Mhm.
forward and as long as you have a lesson learned or like whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, like, dang, I really shouldn't have done that. So we're not going to do that. Or, hey, we're on the right track. This way didn't work. So we're going to formulate a new path. But for me, confidence is that difference maker. Cause I know for me, I've failed a million times, a million and one. I've failed over the years. I've failed in burn. I've failed in my marriage. I've failed as a mom in the short 2.5 years that I've been a mom. But I can say that with like a smile on my face and with almost like a confidence in about it because I know I'm confident enough in myself as an individual that everything that I've ever tried to do for the most part has been with the intention of either bettering myself, bettering the people around me, or creating an impact. And so for
Mhm.
me, failure just shows that I'm trying. It would be
Yeah.
easy for me to sit back and just go through the motions, but I mean, who wants to do that? Not for very long, anyways, right? I feel like there's
Yeah.
space for it, but that window is finite, at least for me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that, you know, there's definitely a season or maybe a day or a moment where the fatigue sets in and you have to listen to your body and say, "Listen, we're gonna set this down for right now." And that's okay. That doesn't mean that you don't ever go back to it, right? Like, I mean, there's days when I'm in the gym that I'm like, "You know what? I'm just not feeling it today," or, "I'm not feeling super strong today." And, so then I might back off on my weight, and that's okay, but that doesn't mean that tomorrow I'm gonna go in and do the same thing. I might feel differently tomorrow. The other thing that you said about confidence that I absolutely love, a lot of my clients will come to me and one of the things they'll say is like, I want more confidence in how I'm showing up in my career and my job for my team. And the thing is, confidence does not you don't just wake up one day and you're just like, "Voila, I'm confident now." Like, confidence comes from doing. Confidence comes from the act of getting in the arena and showing up to the gym and trying. And when you put yourself out there in that way to continue to build that confidence, there's a risk of you failing, but the failure is, like, what you do with the failure is where the confidence comes from because it says, "Yeah, I might fail again tomorrow, but I'm not scared of that, and I'm not gonna let that hold me back." So, what but obviously none of this happens in a vacuum, so, like, what happens if our failures affect other people? Again, we are, wives and moms and friends and bosses and all these other things, like our failures sometimes impact other people, and that's also really scary for people. So how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think that this is and it could sound maybe a little too black and white to people, I'm not sure, but having the right people in your circle is a game changer for that exact scenario because I not everybody deserves a seat at your table, and sometimes that's a really hard pill to swallow. I
Yeah.
know that for me, especially in the last couple of years, I've realized that. But I know for me, the people that are in my circle, and that's my Burn Carry and Chapel Hill community, that's my family, that's my friends, that if anything that I have done and failed at has either negatively impacted them or whatever, they know me to my core. So they know where those roots are, right? They know that it wasn't that my intention was not to fail them or to negatively impact them because they know who I am at my core. I honestly believe that if there is someone in your circle that one of your failures now becomes their story, I just feel like that might not be the right person to have at your table because they
Mhm.
might not understand where you're coming from or what's at your true core or what your values are. It really does boil down to having the right people. It doesn't mean that it had to be a positive experience. It doesn't mean that, my failures negatively impact someone and they just have to be rainbows and butterflies about it. But to be able to have that conversation and that understanding and the vulnerability to talk about those things
Mhm.
is only successful if you have the right people in your circle. And so build your table accordingly because you should in my opinion, I guess I should always follow up with in my opinion, but you should be able to fail in front of the people that are closest to you
Mhm.
with them being able to propel you forward and help you prepare for the next failure because it's coming.
Yeah.
It should be. It should be coming.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I would say as leaders, we have to demonstrate that vulnerability. We have to demonstrate again our willingness to get into the arena, to do those things and then be open with, "Hey, that didn't work." So and own that. Like if the failure especially again as leaders, a lot of times like I see this a lot when people kind of like get to this a really specific level in their careers that they're like, "Oh shit, like my decisions now are really impacting other people around me.
Yeah.
And then I see like some hesitation on making certain decisions or doing certain things. And if you can demonstrate, hey, listen, we're gonna go out here, we're gonna try this. And if this doesn't work, we're gonna own it and we're gonna learn from it, and we're gonna move forward. If you can create that environment, build that table around you and your team, then you're creating a safe space for your team to also make mistakes, to fail. But that's how we learn. That's how we figure out what works and what doesn't. That's like where innovation comes from.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's totally where innovation
Find
comes from.
trust amongst all parties. You have to
Yeah.
trust the people that are in your circle and they have to trust you. And because if they don't, then it just looks like missteps for no reason, right? And
Yeah.
so the people that I keep on my circle, I trust and they trust me. Funny enough, we just took I don't know if you've ever heard of the Colby test, but it's
Yeah.
basically, yeah. So I just took one for the first time. And to point to, for those of you guys that don't know it, basically it puts you into a category of what you are naturally going to do in certain situations. It has nothing to do with work. It's just like as a person, what is natural to you. And if you think about the people that are like, they point or they point, they aim, and then they shoot, or do you just
Mhm.
point all the time, like point, 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 and you don't do anything? I just shoot. Like I'm the I'm the like, and Nicole's laughing because she's like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
you, right? I just shoot. I go for things, but I wasn't always that way, and that doesn't always serve me positively either. Um, at where some of my failures have come from.
Mhm.
But again, right people, right table, circle of trust, if you will. The intentions are clear and the vision is clear. And so it sets all of that up for success as a leader. And success meaning people are just they're with you. They're
Mhm.
following you. They've got you and you've got them. And as long as they know that, your failures will be seen as missed opportunities versus just failure in the negative way that we tend to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Lindsay, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much for being here
Yeah.
with us and talking us through this. So, tell us, where can we find you? Where can we learn more about you if we want to keep up with you?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I will send you my Instagram handle. I've actually formulated a newer one, which I've let die in the last couple weeks, but I'm back on it. So I promise more content there. But y'all follow my communities on our gym Instagram. Instagram's a great place for us just because we document all of the things that
Mhm.
happen in burn. And if there's a burn near you, a burn boot camp near you, you guys, wherever you are out in the world, or at least in the United States for now, go find them. The community is something like I've never seen before. And it's pretty it's life changing. So Instagram's a great place. I would love to hear from you guys. Like I said, I'm a person of connection. So DM me if you're like, hey, I watch your podcast. I would think that was so cool. You guys would make me feel like a celebrity. Like that would be just like would make my day. But yeah, follow us on Instagram, follow me
Mhm.
on Instagram, and come check us out if you're close by. I would love to see you in the gyms.
Yeah, awesome. Well, and we'll drop all of those handles into the show notes so everyone will have easy access to all of that. Well, again, Linz, thanks so much for being here. This has been awesome.
Of course, thank you, Nicole. I'll see you guys soon.
Thanks.